Hey, ambitious dentist, welcome to Start Your Dental Practice, the show for existing and aspiring dentists to take your dental practice to the highest possible level. I'm your host, Jonathan Van Horn, CPA and ABV, founder of dentistmetrics.com. In every episode, we aim to demystify the how to start a dental practice problem by bringing on world-class dentists, influencers, and consultants in the dental industry to pick their brain about how to get past the barriers involved from going from no practice to being a practice owner to owning your own successful dental practice. Hey, ambitious dentist, I have a really exciting interview for you today with the one and only Weston Lunsford, the CEO of Dental Intel. Dental Intel is one of the most popular tools used by dentists to help track the practice management metrics and numbers that matter so that you can focus on dentistry. So in addition to running Dental Intel, Weston's very active in the dental community and is always looking for ways to help dentists make breakthroughs in their practice. As a numbers guy myself, I couldn't be more excited about our conversation today. So in today's interview, you will learn how Weston has seen some of his clients see case acceptance increase by 5, 10, or even 15% in as little as just a few weeks by one simple step, why knowing your numbers is only the first step, and how to turn your metrics into actionable insights, how Weston got into the dental industry and what he's learned running Dental Intel, Weston's view on failures and how it helps you succeed in business, the golf club analogy and how it applies to your practice, and much, much more. So if you're looking to make better use of your metrics and increase case acceptance for your practice, you won't want to miss our conversation. So here's the interview with Weston Lunsford. Hello, ambitious dentists. Today I have with us my brother from another mother, someone who loves the numbers in dental practices, very likely more than even I like the numbers in dental practices. I have with us today Mr. Weston Lunsford of Dental Intel. He is the CEO over there. This thing is his brainchild. Dental Intel has made big strides in the dental industry and really unlocking the mysteries of the practice management numbers that comes inside of dental practices every day. And I tell everyone I meet, look, you guys spend about 10,000 hours learning how to become dentists and almost 0 hours learning how to become business owners, which means that you didn't have strategic management in your MBA courses. It means that you didn't have, advanced accounting degrees. It means you didn't have any type of, corporate finance, courses to be able to understand the ebbs and flows and liquidity and how to use leverage and all these other things that come into play. And that's just the base. I'm talking about almost financial management numbers, not even to mention the next layer down, which is practice management numbers, which is what Dental Intel does a really great job of highlighting for people all over the country. So Weston, thank you so much for coming on today.
Hey, my pleasure. I'm excited to have this conversation with Jonathan and to help hopefully the industry continue to thrive in their practices and patient care. So this should be a lot of fun. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So Weston, I ask everybody the same thing whenever we come on, and that is, how did you get into this dental industry? Because I know you're not a dentist. So how did you get involved in the dental community?
Awesome. Great question. So you said earlier, a brother from a different mother. We kind of are more brothers in the industry that we work in than I think most people probably know. Prior to Dental Intel, I actually had a CPA firm. That CPA firm's still running and servicing clients out there, but I sold my interest in that 2 years ago. But in 2004, I started with my partner, Shaylin Peck. And he had several medical professionals as family members. And we also had some of my friends that were graduating in the medical and dental fields. And naturally, they needed someone to help. And since I was their friend, I was the one that was going to help them out in the business management side and really in helping the accounting and the tax. And I also focused a lot on what we called CFO consulting services. So most medical and dental professionals, at least the private practices, they don't really have that arm in their practice. They definitely have someone that's sometimes doing the bookkeeping, and oftentimes that's a spouse or an office manager. Sometimes the dentist himself, after he puts in 10 hours of clinical work in a day. And so we would take that on, and we would also take on helping them, like what you were speaking about, all of the financial metrics. Dental at Lunsford Peck, we focus heavily on making sure that dental offices, after paying the doctor, a reasonable compensation, that there was still 15 to 20% profitability at the practice, which would average out about 45 to 55% of profits to the doctor if you take his compensation in there. And we really focused on trying to get practices to that level and help them understand the budgeting, where expenses should be, all the way from the supplies and products that you're buying down to the compensation that you're paying your employees. And like you mentioned, we struggled on many aspects, because once you cut expenses, Jonathan, can you save any more money? I mean, after you get this,
Can't believe it.
It's hard, right?
Yeah.
Once you do that initial, I'm going to call it putting your practice through the refiner's fire. Once you get through that and you clean up all the unnecessary expenditures, that's a one-time hit. And then you're running as efficient as possible. And so the next level that we really started focusing on is really helping practices optimize patient care and also top-level production. Because as soon as you get the expenses where they are, the only thing that you can do to increase that margin and profitability is to start producing more and be more efficient when you're producing. And we struggled on getting accurate data, timely data, data that was dependable and consistent. And so that's really how we started focusing on dental intel. I remember having a team of at least 7 analysts at the time. These are MBA grad students. I mean, they were working in an accounting firm, but we hired them specifically just to aggregate and gather data. And we would call the dental offices and we would talk to the office managers and we would ask them, send us this report and this report and this report. And it was exhausting for the office managers, and also for us, it was exhausting and it was a lot of work. And then some of the reports, such as EagleSoft, you know, when you get a report from there, you got to extract data off a PDF report, right? So it's not even coming out in Excel. And it became super arduous, and we just decided that there needed to be a better way. I purchased software that maybe many people have purchased before, SeekaSoft, and worked with VJ for years, and had a lot of our clients utilizing that. But again, there was just some differences of opinions on how to look at data and how to use data to act on that we had in difference on what VJ was doing. And so we ended up deciding that we really needed to do this ourselves. But I guess I stemmed into the industry, or stepped into it by really starting initially working with some friends and some family members that were in the industry. And once you provide really good services and you're proactive with your clients, you know how this works. It's a referral source, right? And so we started growing. When I sold our practice, we had just north of 3,000 clients. Between dental, medical, and we were also doing we had a lot of real estate taxation going on, and there was the real estate boom. And then we also started into technology, which is one reason why I'm into technology as well, because we work with a lot of tech companies. So that was my start. Is that a long answer or a short answer?
That's a really good answer. It does sound like I'm kind of following your footsteps in some ways. And I don't think I've ever told you this, actually, but the initial reason we actually did Dentist Metrics, it was we became Dentist Metrics. We were an outsourced CFO company when we started. We actually said, hey, that's all we're going to do. We're going to help these people that are doing mergers and acquisitions. We're going to help these people that are trying to get up to roll-ups. We're going to help these people that are trying to build really big, really good practices and be very profitable. And we actually started with the initial on our game plan to say, hey, we don't see anything out there that's a really, really fantastic business intelligence tool. And so we said, we're going to learn a lot about the industry, and then we're going to figure out how to make something similar. We're going to make a business intelligence tool. And that was in early 2014. And then in about 2015, when we started doing some due diligence, we heard about you guys coming out, and we saw what you were doing, and we said, well, they've beat us to the punch so well. Like they've done such a good job. We don't even really want to go down this route anymore. And we were doing some other things as well, but that was actually something that we'd also considered. So I completely understand why you went from where you were to where you are now, because we see it every day. That one of the most common questions we get is, my supply costs are at 7.5%. Why aren't they? What can I do? What can I spend less on?
Yep.
We're like, well, it may be nothing that you can spend less on. It may be that you've got to do more in revenue. I mean, it may be that, they're like, well, my staffing costs are 34%. Well, why is it 34%? It's like, well, you've got four hygienists going right now, and the doctor production is not keeping up with hygiene production.
Right.
So we've got to increase doctor production somehow. And then when they start asking us about how to do that, we're like, well, we look at the financial management numbers. We help you with the overhead. Here's something which is dental intel that can help you with that, or maybe a consultant or something like that can help you as well. So very cool. So tell me about this. Tell me about how you've got dental intel up and going, and I know that you probably had some theories about what it was going to be able to accomplish for your clients whenever you started having them adopt the business intelligence software.
Yep.
And what were the assumptions, and what ended up happening?
It's a really interesting question. I've learned a lot. We launched in April of 2015 our software. I mean, we were working on it as early as 2012, but finally launched in 2015. And since that time, my theory prior was very different to what my theory is now. So I love that. And that's just change, right? We have to continually focus on change so that we make sure that we're providing practices and their team members what they need to improve. And my theory about that at the beginning was wrong. So when we started building Dental Intel, we were building it for our CFO services. I mean, that was the purpose. It was really to engage in that, and we were going to continually have a CFO work with the practice ongoing. And after we ended up getting our initial gross looking boards out, I mean, back then I thought they were awesome. They were pearls. But now I look back on what we had originally launched, and I'm thinking, man, that was not great. I can't even believe we exposed ourselves like that, but we did. So my theory, though, at that time, and it was based on some experiences that I had, we had several customers using our dashboards at the same time we were providing these consultative services. And I had a few really close ones that would call up. I mean, we changed their lives, like literally changed lives. And over the course of a year or less, and sometimes over the course of 2 years, we would change lives in practices where they were struggling, and now all of a sudden they're thriving. And I had one of my good friends call me. I said a friend, he was a client, but when you work with your clients, you become really close with those guys. So I was working with him, and he said, Weston, I don't want you to take this the wrong way, but what if I just wanted your dashboard and I didn't want to pay for the consulting anymore? So at first I thought, I mean, I was speechless at the first moment. It honestly hurt. Anytime you lose a client, it hurts, because you invest so much time in wanting them to improve, and that. And so I didn't like the feeling of it. And I just kind of clenched my fist and put a smile on my face and said, yeah, no problem. We can do that. Let's just work out the pricing and get it worked out right. And so we ended up switching it over. And the thing that was great about this client is I had worked with him for literally a year. And so he knew the numbers, and he knew how to act on the numbers. And that's the most important part, is knowing how to act. And he knew that. And it ended up happening again. And over the course of the next 6 or 7 weeks, it happened like 12 to 15 times. So here was my theory. I thought, okay, I have a lot of people that are just wanting dashboards. That's all they want. There's not really a good solution out there. There's some solutions, but not one that makes it simple and gives data that needs to be acted on daily. And so let's just start providing that service, give it to our users, and let them go run with this, and they're going to thrive. My theory was I could give them a dashboard and they would be successful, because as long as you're given a number that says that your average production per visit is sitting at $230 and you're averaging 300 visits, and my 300 visits is capacity each month, well, the only way I can increase production is increase the production per visit. I thought people would get that type of stuff by seeing the data, right?
Sure.
And drilling down on it and saying, okay, well, production's only at $230. Why is that? Click on it, find out the why, and then fix those problems. And so we would just release this software out to people without a ton of training and support. And so my theory is that they would be able to run with it, because I had successful clients that were running with it. But what I didn't take into consideration is that we had trained those guys how to use data. I mean, extensive training on how to use numbers, what the numbers mean, what they're telling us, and then how to actually act upon what they're discovering. And so I would say that was a failure for us. But I have a philosophy that I always use. This was taught to me probably as early as 2001 or two by an old employer. He said, it's okay to fail. You got to fail fast though. If you're failing, fail fast and move on. Like pick up and pivot and change and move on. And so we immediately saw that. And I said, we needed to do a 180 and shift back and start providing training again, extensive training. And so now we have a combination of both. That's something that we do. And the ongoing support and training with our analysts lasts as long as is needed until the team members and that doctor understand how to use data. It doesn't do any good. I used to love to golf. I have gorgeous golf clubs, and now they just sit in my garage. I don't ever use them. I think the last time I ever picked them up was probably about 2 years ago to swing. They do me no good on improving my golf game because I never grab them. I have them, but they do me no good. And that's what was happening when we were selling our product to the dental industry, is that they would love it. They would see it. They would see the opportunities, but then they would never act on it. But what we learned is they really just didn't know how to act on it. They didn't know what changes need to be made. They didn't know what leading indicators were affecting the lagging indicators. And so we just realized that we had to change our philosophy there and provide extensive and good training and support. And so that's kind of how we shifted.
Yeah, and the analogy I always give everyone is that data is just numbers. It's a mass of information, and if you don't use it much like in the correct manner, then you're not going to get a whole lot out of it. It's a tool. I use the analogy of it. It's like a hammer. If you have a carpenter that has a hammer, then they can build you a house. If you have me with a hammer, I can give you a broken thumb.
Yeah. You have to learn how to swing, right? I mean, it's so critical that we know how to use data, and sometimes we undervalue that statement, how to use data. I mean, I think we really underestimate what that truly means, because oftentimes people will say, well, I can see that my hygiene reappointment is sitting at 82% or 60% or whatever it's at, and just by seeing it's not going to cause any change, right? You have to, in fact, I can give you our steps. It's really easy. There's 4 steps to using data, right? The first step is just simply to look. You got to look at it. So if you look, naturally when you look, you're looking for the second step, which is to discover an opportunity. So you got to look first, and then you got to discover some form of opportunity. Now, here's the things when I talk about discovering opportunities. We have a rule in this one little item, which is you've got to discover 3 things to celebrate. First and foremost, you got to find celebrations. And then second, you got to find one helpful observation, something that you can improve on. If you just go straight to the problems first, your team's going to hate you. I can promise you, they're working their tail ends off every day in that practice for the most part. Most people are waking up thinking, I'm going to go give my best. There's very few people that wake up in the morning and think, I'm going to see if I can get away with the least amount of effort possible in my day. That's just not happening. They're giving their absolute best. And one thing that I've learned about working with dentists and their teams is their teams love the dentist. I mean, that literally is a family. So these guys are waking up wanting the best for the practice, wanting the best for their patients, wanting the best for the doctor. And if we always look at data and we go to what we're not doing well instead of focusing on what we're doing well first, it's really going to hurt and cripple the team. So first step again is look, second step is discover, but when you discover 3 celebrations and then go to 1 helpful observation. If those first 2 steps are done every single day, I'm telling you, Jonathan, and I know you know this because you're a numbers guy, incredible things will happen. There's an age-old adage that says, and several people have quoted this many times. I think I don't know. There's several people that have said this, but the track coach of Oregon Ducks was one of the first ones, I believe. But when performance is measured, performance improves, right? We know that. And when it's measured and reported back, the rate of improvement accelerates. And that will happen every single time. And if we just do those first 2 steps, if that's all you ever got to, you're going to improve. Incredible things will happen in the practice. But the third step after discovery is to discuss. If you take the time now, whether that's weekly, if it's monthly, if that's all you can fit in, if you can fit it in for 2 minutes on a daily basis in your morning huddle, but just take some time to discuss. I'll give you a real example. We had a practice. They were struggling on their patient acceptance percentage on treatment that was being presented and treatment that was getting accepted. They were struggling. We always tell people, and statistically, if you want to be in the 90 percentile range there, I'm not talking about patients saying yes. I'm talking about the full treatment plan being said yes. Okay, so I'm looking at dollars. There's a difference between patient acceptance and treatment acceptance. But when I look at treatment acceptance, so total dollars presented in a case and total dollars accepted, 90 percentile is sitting at 66.8% right now for the dental intel community. Pretty good. My guess is, if you go look, that has not been measuring and monitoring this, if you go look at the percentage of a practice and just pull those numbers, total dollars presented in last month, total dollars actually accepted, which is completed or scheduled last month, they're going to be somewhere in the mid 40s. I know that's hard to buy.
Well, no, I don't think it's hard to buy it. See it all. I mean, I find it just dumbfounding that practice management softwares don't have this like big red alarms going off.
Yeah, let's talk about that later on this call, though. Why are practice management softwares not doing this? I have some of my theories. So but if you look at those numbers, though, Jonathan, and I had on this third step of discussing it as a team, we measure this by practice, we measure it by department, so hygienists, we also measure it by treatment coordinators, we measure it by the dentist, and we'll measure it individually by the individuals, not just departments. And so there's a lot of different data that we can get by looking at treatment acceptance, because it's absolutely one of the biggest ways you can improve the efficiencies and production and patient care in a practice. I mean, if you think about presenting needed treatment, if the patient says yes, patient's getting healthier. Practice is doing higher end dentistry, and so you're more efficient on those visits that are coming in your practice, which means you're more profitable. Would you rather have a patient come in and them walk out with an $85 visit or walk out with a $600 visit, right? I mean, you're going to be much more profitable on the $600 visits, but the only way we can get that done is if they're saying yes to the restorative treatment that you're diagnosing. So we're looking at a practice. This is in Florida, ginormous practice. It's Spodak. I don't know if you know Dr. Craig Spodak. He has a gorgeous practice. I think there's 28 operatories now. Team is phenomenal. I mean, just a great group. And as we were sitting there talking about treatment acceptance and looking at their percentage and where they were at, they recognized the first thing they looked. We celebrated some things first, but we discovered that was a great opportunity for them to improve. And our only goal was for them to improve it by 10%. These guys present on average about $8 million of restorative treatment a year. That's what they present out there. They're about a $12 million practice. So they're presenting restorative treatment about $8 million. And if they improve that by just 10%, that's another almost $1 million of production in their practice, right? So we were talking about it. We drove down in the dashboard and we looked at each team member's performance, and we focused just on hygienists, because the team members that are in the operatories with the doctor, they have such a huge impact on patients saying yes. The doctor comes in and he diagnoses, and then the doctor leaves. The person that's left with that patient is either the assistant or the hygienist, one of those two, and they're either scheduling or handing it off now to the treatment coordinator. But generally, the doctor's out of the picture at this moment. So the impact that our team members have is so huge, and I think we underestimate the impact that they have. But we just drove down on the hygienist. That's where all we were looking at, and they had several hygienists, so it was several pages of scrolling down, but it ranks it automatically with the highest acceptance percentage all the way down to the lowest acceptance percentage. And we don't want to focus on the individual that's at the lowest. I mean, that's not something that we're trying to highlight, but what we want to focus on is clearly the person at the top is doing something different than the person at the bottom. And there was over a 20% spread, Jonathan, when we looked at this on this practice. So here's the crazy thing, though. When we looked at the spread and the 20% difference, the person that was third from the bottom was with the doctors that presented the most amount of treatment, almost 3 times than the people that were at the top. So not only was she lowest on acceptance, but she was presenting with the doctor the most amount of treatment. I mean, crazy, right? So as soon as he saw that, it was all of a sudden just like bells going off, thinking we got to make a switch here. Initially, the reaction is like, well, this hygienist isn't doing her job right. That's the initial human tendency, is just saying blame. Well, what we did instead was started talking to the top 2 performers and said, talk to us about your experiences when the doctor leaves the operatory. Walk us through what you do. In the middle of that discussion, one of the lower presenting hygienists, she immediately just sighed and went, ah, and it was silent for a second. And the doctor was so keen on it. He's like, what's going on? I want to use their names, but I don't want to pick on them right now. But the doctor's like, what's happening? And she said, I'm not doing that. And the doctor said, you're not doing what? She says, I'm not taking the time to walk the patient into the treatment coordinator. I walk him in there, but then I just basically introduce him and walk away, where she's actually sitting down for a minute and walking through the exact case that you went through in the operatory. And she says, Dr. Spodak, I just don't have time to do that. I don't have time. And that was the major discovery, right? We knew that there needed to be enough time for her to do that, and all the hygienists to follow that protocol, because it was the outlier of what was going on. It was the difference. And they all started making a difference. And literally, Jonathan, this is the crazy thing. In 1 week, the entire practice increased 10% in their treatment acceptance percentage in 1 week. And all it was following those first 3 steps. I haven't even talked about the 4th step yet. It was just, well, they did it. But again, it's look, discover, in discover, 3 celebrations, 1 observation. Discuss now the observation, discuss it. See if you can learn something that's working and not working. After you discuss it, the 4th one is to act. And if you do those 4 steps, data will change your lives. If you skip those steps, there's no sense in paying for data. It's a waste of time and money, right? So
a lot of people get caught up in that 4th step.
They do. They have a hard time acting. And really acting, if you think about it, it's the simplest of all the steps. Going and finally, if you do the first 3 and you discuss what the opportunity is and what the problem is and what's going on, and sometimes it's just a hypothesis, right? But if you discuss it, the action actually paints itself for you. It's right there. Now you just got to go and do it. But you're right. Change is hard. Change is hard. And I always tell people, if you want a different result, you have to change. You can't do the same things day in and day out and expect a different result. You have to change. But that's one of the things that we really focus on at Dental Intel. We give them the dashboards, but they're held accountable by an analyst and an account manager here to that change, because honestly, we don't want to work with people that don't want to change. I pride our organization's success off of seeing numbers change drastically in a dental practice. And if we can't see that movement, then we end up talking about it as a team with those managers that are working with those practices and those trainers, that this is a practice that's not willing to change. We see the problems, we discuss the problems, they say they're going to go do it, and then they don't ever go change it. And it's funny, because then you'll have some practices come back and they'll say, I'm not getting any benefit out of this. Well, we see that your pre-appointment percentage is sitting at 32%. We know what the problem is, because your hygiene reappointment is only at 60%, and you have no one focusing on recall because there's no attempts being made. So what did you change? And nothing changes, but yet they expect the pre-appointment to all of a sudden jump up, right? But you have to use data in a positive manner. I can't overemphasize that, Jonathan. They have to celebrate. They have to celebrate successes. And we joke around about this here at Dental Intel, because sometimes it's hard to find 3 positives. Sometimes that's hard. It's a stretch sometimes. And sometimes it's got to be simply just saying, Jonathan, your attitude every morning when you come in here is incredible. Thank you for being so positive. And has nothing to do with the data, but you've got to get some form of positive thing out there before you can talk about the opportunities to improve. So anyway, it's a lot of fun looking at things that way.
Great leadership discussion. Great actionable topic for all of you guys out there. If you missed it, there was a chance for you to increase your acceptances by 10% by doing one small thing. I think that's probably gonna be the name of the episode. Probably is how to increase your treatment acceptance or case acceptance by 10% by doing this one quick trick.
So simple.
So simple. So tell me about, we touched on it earlier. One of the things when I'm trying to explain, what a business intelligence tool is to clients, whenever I've highlighted that they have these repeated questions and they want to do better from a practice management standpoint. They don't really want to buy, go pay for a consultant, but they want to actionably manage their practice and make changes for the better because they realize there is opportunity there. They're not doing everything they can. Why, when I explain what numbers come across in business intelligence tools, they say, well, EagleSoft has that. And I say, well, where is it? Well, there's a report somewhere that does it. And they're like, well, are you sure it actually shows you what it is you're needing to look at? So for the one in the EagleSoft, that's the big example, is that they'll look at the production at the end of the day, and they'll show all the adjustments that occurred in that day for prior period production.
Right.
Whenever you're trying to actually look at what you did for the day, why are you including numbers for adjustments for stuff that happened in the past? Like, why do you not have what happened during the day? So why do practice management softwares not highlight the numbers that dentists need to know in order to improve the practice? What are your theories from being on your side of the table?
Okay, well, there's two things that, based off what you brought up there, that I want to cover. One is answering that question directly. I don't want to really evade that question because I do have a couple theories on that and just working with some of these companies. But two, I would love to talk about the difference between just running a report in EagleSoft and getting some lagging information versus, you use two words in that question, intelligence, right? You use getting intelligence. I would say that getting information off of a report is just information. You can gain intelligence by looking at it, but getting true intelligence is something that's actually telling you what needs to change in your practice. That's almost a virtual intelligence type experience, right? Where they're saying, based off of this data, this is how you need to act. And so I'd like to address that. And the other thing that you use two awesome words in there, intelligence and actionable, right? And so the question is, on the reports that we're running out of EagleSoft or Dentrix or Open Dental, Open Dental by far, I feel, is one of the strongest and best out there in that regard. But when we run those reports, are they actionable? Do they cause an individual to go and act on something? And in most cases, they don't, because the report is stagnant and requires that individual to decipher what needs to be acted on. And I'm not saying that our team members can't do that, but you alluded to this earlier, they've not had any training or education in that. And so sometimes drawing the lines between this is what the report says and then figuring out this is what I need to do to impact the numbers on that report, sometimes that can be challenging, Jonathan. I mean, you and I make a livelihood off of that, right? We make a livelihood of drawing those lines and figuring out how to cause impact. And so that can be a challenge for a lot of team members until they learn how to do it. And the key is making sure they're getting the right information, not looking at information that really doesn't mean anything. So let's briefly just talk about these practice management software companies. First of all, there's a love-hate relationship that we have with them, right? I love that they're there because the data is somewhere within that system. It's in there. And so I love that they've created these softwares that over the years, we've been able to capture so much information. The problem is all this information has really been sleeping inside the back end systems. And the only thing that's been available to you and to me and to any dental practice out there is whatever EagleSoft or Dentrix or CareStream, whoever it is, has decided to surface. And in most cases, the things that they're surfacing is what the dentist wants to see, not what the dentist needs to see. We constantly build products based on what people want and not what they need, because sometimes the needs are not as fun to look at. So as an example, when I ask practices, the first thing that we do when we sync with them and start working with them is we ask them, what do you measure right now? I'll give you four, but what are the four guesses? What are the top three things you think all practices rattle off to us? And I'm telling you right now, Jonathan, I've never not had these three things mentioned when we say, what are you measuring?
Hey guys, sorry for the interruption. Really quick announcement for you. And if you're going to be a dental practice owner, you know you're at some point going to have to get a dental practice loan, whether it's going to be to acquire a dental practice or it's going to be to start a startup dental practice. You're going to have to get a loan. And I'm really proud to say that a company that I've worked with personally dozens of times over the past few years is our first sponsor after 80 episodes of Start Your Dental Practice. And our first sponsor is Bank of America Practice Solutions. So whenever you're going to be getting a new loan, whenever you're going to get a loan for starting your dental practice or acquiring a dental practice, you really want to make sure that you have three things when it comes to that loan. Number one, you want a really great interest rate. Number two, you want to make sure that the company that you're speaking with has a lot of experience and can guide you through the best path to be able to become a practice owner through the loan process. And number three, you want to make sure that the terms associated with that loan are the most advantageous for you. And I'm really happy to say that all three of these things, Bank of America just knocks it out of the park for you. It's really no brainer. If you're going to have to get a loan, which you are going to have to do 100%, you may as well go with a company that has great interest rates, has great experience with the industry, and has the best terms out there in the market today. So if you're currently in the process of shopping loans, 100% give Bank of America Practice Solutions a try. And if you would mention that you came through the SYDP community, it would help out the podcast a lot and also allow us to give back to our very gracious sponsors. Again, this is an advertisement, a paid advertisement. If you go to them, I will, have more advertising revenue come to me. So if you enjoy the podcast, I would appreciate you helping out our sponsors. And if you are interested in that loan process, just text the word bank loan, one word, BANKLOAN to 33444. Again, that's bank loan to 33444, and we will reach out to you. Thanks, guys. Well, if number one, you hope that they say, yes, we are measuring things.
Yep. If they are measuring anything.
You have to hope they pass that first test. One, new patients.
Yes, that's one of them.
Production, maybe production by day, if we're lucky. The accounts receivable, probably.
Hey, you hit them. Yeah. You got it. Those are the three that we hear all the time. And when I say accounts receivable, I'm going to infer that you mean collections and what our balance is, what's owed to us and what we're collecting.
Insurance plus patient.
Always. We have people measuring new patients, production, and AR are their collections. Every single time. The reality is and my next question after, we often will say, awesome. So do you have a production goal? Everyone has it. You have a collection goal? Everyone has it. You have a new patient goal? Everyone has it. They all have their goals around these three major numbers. And so this is what they want to see. Well, the practice management softwares know this. They've learned this over the years. They're not idiots either. And so they built what people wanted. So they give you reports that focus on those three items: new patients, although they don't handle those very well, production and collections. I mean, you have so many different reports. There's production by provider. There's production by day. There's production by type. Right? There's production by procedure. You have all the production reports you can imagine. But here's the reality. If you were sitting there and I said, well, what is your goal? And you said, it's $100,000 a month. And I said, awesome. Let's say that last month you did $60,000. Why? And then it's crickets. They have no idea. They have the number that they want out of the practice management software. The problem is they don't have the numbers they need. So here's the question: why are the which is what you asked, why are the practice management softwares not giving dental offices what they need? Well, let's look at the practice management software companies out there. The three major ones is CareStreams, which is, and I'm not going to do these in order, but these are the three major: CareStreams, Shines, and Patterson's, right? Patterson owns EagleSoft and a couple others. Shine owns Dentrix and a few others. CareStream owns PracticeWorks and SoftDent and maybe a few others. Those are the three major software companies. Not one of them started their own. They were all acquired, right? And what are these companies focused on?
They're focused on they want to be a one-stop shop for everything for the dentist.
100% everything.
Yeah.
They want to sell supplies to you. They want to sell equipment to you. They want to sell business services to you. They want to be everything. And it'd be nice to believe that an organization could come out and just be the best at everything. But the reality is, and especially when we're looking at data, they're not. They're just not the best in that regard. And they're not that. And I'm not saying they don't do a good job on a lot of things, because I think that there's phenomenal things that come out. But the reality is they're focused on, and their major bread and butter is supplies. I mean, that's where a majority of the revenue is coming in. And so I just feel like the softwares, as we know, because we're still living in almost archaic ages of technology in regards to dental practice management software. It's old. It's crazy to me. Never would that fly in my industry. Never would it fly. Or even in your industry. I mean, constantly, you probably work with Intuit for most part, or what software company do you buy most of your software from?
We use Thomson Reuters for our tax softwares,
and every year they're updating, and not just making little bug fixes. I mean, sometimes you have complete full overhauls of their softwares and their practice management softwares. Well, we don't see this. We don't see this in the dental industry, and the reason why is because it's not their bread and butter. I mean, the reality is the margins are short, they're small, and most dentists, if it's working, they're not really typically the business-minded person that says, I'm going to go get the best technology out there because I believe it's going to give me these efficiencies and opportunities. They don't think that way. They're thinking, which is how they should think. I'm not saying this is bad, but they're thinking about, how do I make sure my patients are healthy and that my family here in the office is taken care of? I mean, those are their two major focuses. And so we're in an industry where it's unique enough to where this old software that is being used today is accepted because it's working to get patients healthy. The question is it optimized? If we only see on average 40% of our patients saying yes to treatment, and I'm saying yes over the period of 6 months, 40% is saying yes to treatment we presented 6 months ago. Is it really working? Is it really working? Or, I mean, I had a doctor in the office the other day, and we were doing a team training for dental intel, and I had a doctor here, and I asked him, doctor, if you had a 3-surface filling that you were going to do or you diagnose, and I said, first of all, what did I say wrong there? And he said, well, you said 3-surface filling. I said, why is that wrong? He said, because that probably should be a crown. I said, great. A crown or a filling, decay going on in a tooth. If you presented that treatment and it didn't get accepted, 6 months later, that patient comes back into you for hygiene again. Can you still do that crown? He said, it's likely going to be a bigger surface crown, 1, or 2, I'm going to have to do a root canal or an extraction or whatever the patient can do, because the decay is not going to stop. So if we think about only 40% of our patients saying yes, that decay that you're diagnosing in their mouth is not going to get better. They are either A, going to lose a tooth, B, get it fixed somewhere else, or C, get it fixed by you. If they get it fixed by you, the patient's getting healthier and you're making more money, which means you're more profitable. And the software companies have not focused their data and their intelligence around getting that done. They just haven't. They focus their data intelligence around just gathering the information and almost waiting so that when the patient comes, the information's there for you, right? Well, dental intel doesn't focus that way. The 2 words that you mentioned, intelligence and actionable, we focus on sending the information to you so that you know which patients you need to reach out to ensure that, 1, they're getting healthy, and 2, you're getting the production, that someone else is not getting that. And so, for example, here's an example. You measure new patients. You can get a report in Dentrix for new patients, right, to see how many new patients you have. Well, I don't just give a report of new patients. I tell you how many new patients came in and what percentage of those new patients entered into your hygiene program, and what percentage of those new patients were presented with restorative treatment, and which percentage actually accepted it and is scheduled to come back, and which ones aren't. But we don't just stop at the data. We take our customers beyond data, and we tell them the very next day that if Jonathan walked out without scheduling that, you're going to get almost like a little text message in the dashboard that says, Weston, Jonathan left the practice, you diagnosed this, and it didn't get scheduled. Would you like to follow up with him? And it says yes, and then they go through the calendaring and scheduling of following up so that no patient ever falls through the cracks. And the reality is, if 2 weeks goes by and you still haven't dealt with him, I'm going to remind you again. So this is where we're using data to send back to the team members on actionable things that they're going to step on. And that's just one example, whether it's rescheduled treatment, reappointing for hygiene, whether it's a team member needing to accomplish a task, whatever it is, we're using that data to tell each team member who and what they need to do in order to get the patient healthy and the practice thriving and optimized. And if they act on those things and actually follow through, we used to, Jonathan, I think when you first started with us, I used to be just the data visualization company, where we would aggregate it and we give it to them and we train them on how to use it. Now we aggregate it, we train them on how to use it, but then we don't let them have to figure out what patients they need to go change on. We're now actually sending to them, here's a list of patients you need to act on each day, and the reason why they need to act, and not just globally too. I'll tell Tina in her role as a treatment coordinator, or Susan in her role as a claims manager, or Jennifer in her role as a hygiene scheduler, very specifically dialed in. Jennifer has her tasks that need to be done today in order to optimize the patients she's supposed to work with, and in order to optimize the patient's care. And so and whether you use Dental Intel or whether you create your own systems to do this, the key is understanding how to use data to drive and improve patient care and practice performance. And I don't know any business, to be honest with you, Jonathan, unless it's just a bull market business where it just is easy and revenue flows in. And if there's a case like that, then we need to get into it, right? Yeah. We got to go there.
We'll talk off call about all those opportunities that we have.
So I don't know any business that if they don't have good data are really thriving.
Sure.
They can be getting by, and when I say getting by, most dentists can live a super healthy quality life getting by because the market is so great. But for example, I had one practice, one of my favorite practices that we've worked with in all times. He went from taking home $260,000 a year as an associate to just over $500,000 last year. I mean, he was doing better than getting by. 260 grand a year is phenomenal. And he's a GP, but taking home over $500,000 a year, that's ridiculous, right?
It's a lot easier to pay off those student loans whenever.
Oh man, and the thing is, the awesome part about it is he dropped a day of work a week, so he's working one day less. Mm-hmm. His quality of life at home is better, and I'm not saying money does that, but he's had so many efficiencies that data has brought to his organization. In fact, he wrote a proof on our. He just wrote something. He said, this is what he wrote. He wrote this on Google reviews on Dental Intel's web on I don't know, whatever, on Google. I'm not a marketing guy. He said, over 12 months, Dental Intel has been a game changer for our business. They provide us actionable information about our practice that allows us to make impactful decisions every day. What's more, their customer service is extremely good, from coaching and consultations to feature requests. They are timely and take inquiries seriously. It has been fun to watch the business grow, both in reach and their services and customers. I'm excited to see how this company is going to continue to change Dental Intel and the industry. If you're reading this wondering whether this service can help you, the answer is most definitely yes. I would say this a little bit differently. If you're wondering if getting data and using it on a daily basis in your practice, or a weekly staff meeting, or a monthly training meeting can help you, absolutely yes. I don't care how you go get that data. I don't even care if you start with something as simple as identifying how many active patients you have, and out of those active patients, how many are scheduled to come back in your practice, and get that percentage, and every week just focus on improving that one item, one thing, and it will change your practice. It will change it. So you don't have to overwhelm yourself with so many different things. Keep it simple, but start measuring. That's the key. Start measuring.
You touched on the active patient number, and for anyone listening, I think that's one of the most helpful things for you to be able, if you're going to start doing one thing that you aren't doing that isn't on those list of 3 items that we talked about. Like, for example, I run a CPA company. I know how many clients I have.
And you know if it's growing or shrinking every day, you know that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't understand why dentists don't understand how many active patients are in the practice. So that's a fantastic one. And just you mentioned a few things that I think are really important to kind of emphasize on. And you talked about the getting by. And I feel like a lot of people, they get to a level of competency in their ownership of their business, and they start to get by. And once that happens, they start to get comfortable, and they don't want to push the envelope any farther, or they don't want to, optimize where the potential for optimization is inside. And to be honest with you, for some people that's fine, depending on where you're on your stages of life. For most of my clients, most of the people that I'm speaking with every day, we have a younger demographic, and they're going to be in this for a much longer haul, hopefully. Right. And as everyone knows, business in and of itself, it always gets more difficult, because more people enter it. The better the business is, the more people that will enter it, the more people, the more competition will arise, the more big competition will arise. And, with external factors as well, it can become more difficult also. For example, lower reimbursement rates from insurance companies, or higher debt for people getting out of school, or, right. Expanding retirement ages for retiring doctors means more doctors are out there, which means there's more opportunities for people to go and get dentistry, which is fantastic for the patient. But from a business perspective, sometimes it means there's a bit more competition. And
especially what we see happening in the industry with corporate dentistry and DSOs, mm-hmm. the competition is steep right now, and it's going to get harder.
It is, and their consolidation is going to happen in every industry. I feel like dentistry is a bit more protected than things like optometry and even accounting services, that because it is so personalized. I mean, you have to literally have someone's hands in your mouth, and there's always going to be a market for that single doc owner. But if you are the danger of getting by is that the business industry, the competitive part of that, is going to pass you by.
And you've got to think about that getting by. The doctor, Jonathan, may be comfortable with it. Like, he may be healthy, but if you want a healthy team and a team that's constantly thinking outside the box that they're in and trying to be innovative, which, by the way, is one of the most healthiest things for the human body, is to create and act on that creation. But if you're just getting by and doing the same thing every single day, your team begins to become stagnant too, and they don't become satisfied when they come in the office. And culture is a big part of making sure that we're happy when we walk into our practices in our line of business every single day. We need to make sure the culture is healthy. And I'm telling you right now, if you're focusing on improving and not just maintaining or getting by, the culture changes. It's more exciting. People are giving people high fives, and they're smiling and they're laughing. And I'm not saying that can't be happening in a practice. It is getting by, but there's not that rewarding gratification coming in. I just had one of my team members come into me and say, Weston, look what I just created. It was this training video, and he had all the data. We're data guys, right? But he had all the data on how efficient this was going to be for our organization, on how much time, and he calculated that out into money it was going to save. And he was so proud of himself. But at the same time, I was so proud. And the reason that even came about is because in one of our brown bag training meetings that we had for lunch a few days ago, I said, don't live in your box, guys. We need every single mind on figuring out how to optimize and improve the organization. We need that. And he took that and ran with it. And man, he is like on cloud 9 right now. And I love that, because it's putting me on cloud 9. Yeah. And so we don't want to just get by in life. That's not what we want. We do want to thrive. We want to optimize. We want to be performing at the best possible levels we can. And you can't do that just by maintaining. You got to always be thinking and looking and identifying and discussing and celebrating. I mean, that's a constant thing. And data really can help you surface and do that. So that's why I'm here. I love it. We're passionate about what we do. And you are. I know that. We've worked with you. We've worked with some of your clients, and it emanates emotion, right? It inspires engagement, and it's fun working with people like that. And here at Dental Intel, we always tell every day in our huddles and in our meetings, we always focus on saying, what are we going to do today to create value? and not just train, not just treat a patient. What are we going to do to create true value for the customers and the practices and the team members and the patients that we're affecting? And we're passionate about that, and we trust in each other's abilities to do that. And if we can create that type of atmosphere in every single dental office, man, so much fun happens, and it's just incredible to watch. It's incredible to see a practice going from producing $1 million in profitability around 5% to all of a sudden $2.5 million profitability around 45%. I mean, you've seen it in your career. Those are exciting things. And every practice, I don't care what market you're in, I don't care, has the ability to reach those levels. Every one of them. So they just need the right information, and then they need to act.
Love it. So thank you so much for your time today, Weston. Tell me if someone's listening today, they want to go see what Dental Intel is all about, how do they do that?
Yeah, easiest way is just to go to our website, dentalintel.com, and type in, there's a little form there. We'll give you a free picture of your practice, meaning we'll sync your data. It takes 5 minutes. We'll grab it all. Even if you just want to know your active patients and what percentage of those patients are rescheduled, or if you want to know your treatment acceptance percentage right now in your practice and the last 12-month trend, I mean, I'll give you 2 to 3 major things that you can take back to your team and focus on if you want. But let's just look at it. Easiest way to do that is go to dentalintel.com, and if we'll even do a 30-minute free consultation with you on that with one of my analysts, showing the greatest opportunities. We'll identify your 3 greatest opportunities. After we identify 3 things to celebrate, we'll show you 3 greatest opportunities in your practice. Normally we charge $1,000 for that service, but for the first 25, Jonathan, that do that portion, if they want an analyst just to guide them through that data, I'll do it for free. But in the notes in there, just type in Van Horn. Your last name, is that easy? VANHORN, is that?
That's
or
it.
E? No E at the end.
No E.
So if they type in Van Horn, I'll know, and we'll grab the first 25 that type that in. We'll go ahead and give the 30-minute analyst time of identifying the 3 opportunities in the practice at no cost at all. So that should be fun.
Awesome. Yeah, so guys, go out there and do that. I mean, go out there and take the demo. It's only going to help. I guarantee you, if you invest that 30 to 45 minutes that he's saying that would be your only cost in that, you're going to receive a lot of value for that. So, and I'm a big fan of Dental Intel. They continue to innovate, and they are doing a lot of really cool things in the industry. And I know they're champions of the same people that I want to see succeed every day. And so for that, Weston, thank you for doing what you do for the industry. And I'll see you next time.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Thanks, Weston. Bye, guys. And so that's it for today, Ambitious Dentist. Again, I'm Jonathan Van Horn, CPA and ABV. I'll see you next week with another world-class practice owner or consultant that will help you start your very own dental practice.